and that was as smooth as I could do it. Here we are.
Yes, yeah, not quite as good. Not quite as smooth.
It started out as good as I've ever done it, and then something happened.
Yeah,
But,
you dropped out there for a second.
Yeah.
But once again, you have a new intro. You got the music going, and I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't expecting it.
I know, right? Yeah, it's a good intro. I just can't get the transition right. I'll get it eventually. But here we are once again, the Unwatched Pile, the show where we dig into our physical media collections, pull out shit that we haven't seen in years because we bought it and we were like, I'm going to watch this. And then we were like, I don't got time. I bought 10 more things. I'm getting buried in stuff. And then you never watch it. And you're like, this is the show where you finally do it.
And that's what happened to me recently. I finally got around to putting things away off of the piles that I have, and then I ended up adding more titles back to these piles and filling them right back up. So I'm back to where I started, back from square one.
Yes.
And it's a tall task to ask for, to go through all these so quickly. But we try to make those headway on this show here on Unwatched Pile number 7.
One film at a time.
One film at a time. I guess that's all you can really do, unless you've got like multiple monitors set up and you're.
It's not the best way to watch movies.
Yeah, it's not the best. Multitasking watching a movie is difficult to say the least.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's what we do here on the Unwatched Pile. But we do, as always, have a very special guest. And who do we have, Steven?
Well, he's been a follower of our podcast, Chasing Labels, for a while. He was also a guest there. He's always been very good supporter of ours, and we love what he does over at Norman Studios, preserving silent film over there, and that is Gage Hogsten. How you doing, man? Oh, wait a second. Now I hear you.
Can you hear
Talk.
me?
Yes.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's up, man?
No echo today?
No echo yet.
Oh,
no, I'm not hearing it. You sounded good.
Yeah, it's something to do with my microphone somehow. I did the disconnected a few months ago, and I finally got my mic and everything set up, and it was like too loud and too hot, and it was like everybody's like, Gage's voice is booming, and like I still got to figure it out. And then today it just didn't work at all. So
well, it's sometimes I mean, it's like you got to get the right settings right or something. I don't know what kind of mic it is, but maybe the mic needs to be calibrated. Maybe it's got its own software that you have to use with it.
I think I ran into every issue possible because I know with StreamYard you have to have Google Chrome, and I used it last time with you guys, and I guess Google Chrome somehow found its way off my laptop, so I had to re-download Google Chrome. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm all out of sorts. I just got out of work, went home, ate, showered, and made it here just in time.
Awesome, man. Well, we're love to have you, especially one of me and Andrew's favorite times of the year, Noir, Vember. So this is.
I see they got the black and white photos, and Andrew's got.
I wanted to make all of us black and white for this stream, but I was like, I don't know how to do that.
I was thinking of not suit and tie because I don't have a suit and tie, shirt and tie. But then I just grabbed the hat. I actually didn't remember where the hat was. It's been so long since I've worn it. I only bring it out for special occasions like this episode. And I think I wore it one time for a Mad Men season premiere.
There you go.
And then I bring it to like, I don't know, family functions, weddings.
I think I've seen you wear it for reviews before.
I did it for the review of Casablanca. Did I?
Probably.
Maybe.
That sounds right.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That review, which was one of my first ones ever, I did it in black and white. Yeah. Well, afterward I put it in black and white.
Sure.
But we are talking film noir. We're talking neo noir. We're talking all kinds of noir because it is Noirvember. This month went by so fast that I couldn't even delve into all of the film noirs that I wanted to delve into. But of course, I had to do it in time for the show. As we all know, every November the hashtag Noirvember is all the way through the internet.
Yes.
all over the place now. It's kind of a viral sensation. A guest we had on last year, Miss Mariah Gates, was the founder of the Noirvember hashtag once upon a time. We got to have her on talking about film noir and all that kind of stuff about a year ago. I've been a big fan of her for years, for writing and movie reviews and all kinds of stuff for a very long time. So it was really nice to kind of get the founder on of Noirvember.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be an exciting episode.
Yes, it is. You got people in the chat. We got Dan Skip Allen, a friend of ours. He's watching us on glorious 70-inch 4K. That's the only way to watch.
Yeah, I hope I look good. I hope I look good in 4K.
That's nice.
It's a good thing I got more light in the room today.
I was going to say, Steven, you look much brighter than usual.
I look brighter. I look whiter because I am really this white.
Right. Did you get?
It's to match, the black and white aesthetic of noir.
Yeah. Did you get new lighting though?
Well, yeah, we got a couple some lamps from my grandmother who's moving. And so I got this one lamp in the room that has like 3 bulbs, and I just put it behind the computer and it lit the whole room up. And I'm like, man, this is great.
Nice. I like to keep mine more mysterious looking. Fits the whole noir theme, I guess.
Sure. I could have went there. We're going to let Gage do that though. His is a little bit more noir. I
was about to say mine kind of has like Venetian blind. So you could see the light coming off from the side here. It does look kind of noir.
Very ambiguous.
I know you did that on purpose. But of course, Josephine's got tons of stuff in here talking about recent stuff she's watched. Yeah. She talked about LA Confidential, so I have to. By the way, I know. I heard about the new book. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's my favorite noir, but I could talk about that all day. We're going to talk about first time watches of noirs, and then of course what we paired them with. That's always the fun part for me, is pairing up these first time watches with something that comes to mind. But as always, let's start with our first time watches. Gage, you're the guest. You go first. What was your first time watch, and tell us what you think?
Oh man. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me back on this week.
Awesome. You're always welcome.
I really appreciate you guys inviting me on to do this. And this is I'm kind of probably the worst person to have on this kind of show, but the best, because I mean, like all of us, we have lots of stuff that we've had sitting around for a long time. But I'm always the worst when it comes to any kind of like critical review of a movie, because I think we've talked about this before on the last time I was on. I'm always like I don't know. I'm like cynical to reviewing things. Like I'm always just like, who wants to hear me talk about Citizen Kane?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, everybody's got that. A lot of us have that feeling. Yeah. I was going to say, like, it's being that these are this is part of the thing I think that's a little bit lets you off the hook with the show like this, is that we're not doing full reviews because these were the first times we watched these.
First time, yeah. And in my case, I watched it for the first time last night.
There you go. Yeah.
I want to say shouts out to my boy Jeff and Rory who are in the group.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. And
awesome.
Also Josephine DeMarca. I always enjoy her input on y'all's podcast because she really gets into the whole first time watch thing. Even if it's not a episode like this, she'll always talk about things that she's watched for the first time recently.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's far more interesting than, reviewing things. I always think that like someone's film journey is the most exciting part of it. You watch movies for so long and you find yourself getting into all these different corners of cinema, and discussing where you are in that kind of space is, I think, the most fun. And so with me, the first movie, I watched it for the first time last night. I wanted to be as fresh as I could about it. I watched 1950s The Asphalt Jungle from John Huston. It's a movie that I want to say I got that the summer, two or three summers ago. I've had it for a long time. And I know that it's one of the cornerstone noir films, and that it was a part of Warner Brothers film noir DVD box set that they had, and was part of Warner Brothers big Turner Classic Movie Festival, and it really sprung the whole Noirvember. It's part of that cornerstone group of films. It's an MGM film made by John Huston. It's only my second film of his I've ever seen, I believe. The only other one being The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which I
Love that film.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is it's my grandpa hit that, and The African Queen, which is also a John Huston movie, which I've never seen, are his two favorite movies. And I was lucky enough about 10 years ago to see The Treasure of the Sierra Madre in theaters, and
Nice.
that's like an all-time top American film. And The Asphalt Jungle is also probably one of his most famous films, and it's got a lot of huge American stars in it. With the biggest one now, I don't know how much she was marketed at the time, but Marilyn Monroe, because this is, I believe, like her 4th or 5th acting credit. And I don't even know if she's credited in the credits of the film. I meant to go back and rewind it after the credits, and I was like, I don't think I saw her name in there. I don't even know if she's credited in it because she's so young. And another crazy thing, that this is actually my first Marilyn Monroe movie I've ever seen.
Oh, okay.
I know, which is, I mean, she doesn't have a lot of films, of course, but again, a lot of her movies are cornerstone classics of American cinema. So it is kind of crazy that I hadn't seen it. And also, Sterling Hayden is the main actor in this movie, which he's one of my all-time favorites. The Godfather and Dr. Strangelove being my two favorites of his that he's in. And he plays basically the hood. He plays the guy that, he's the rough, tough guy with no connections, kind of, no background. They're just like, oh, we'll bring him onto the job because, we know that he can be expendable kind of deal. And he comes into the movie, he plays a Southerner, and this is kind of where I get it back at with like reviewing films. It's like a lot of people could see his acting style, especially at the very first half of the movie. When he comes in, he has this very like stiff, oh, you boned me in front of a stranger, and like it's kind of awkward. It's like, so I think a lot of people could be turned off by stuff like that. And by the halfway through the movie, there's a lot of scenes that he's in that shows how great of an actor he is, especially once we start getting to some more of the tense moments or some of the more emotional moments, and we get great use of close-ups in this movie. Probably some of the best close-ups I've seen in a movie in a long time. It really creates a very tense moment towards the end of the film, which I don't want to spoil anything, but John Huston's directing is amazing. And then also I want to talk about a guy, I believe his name's Mark Lawrence, who plays a character named Cobby in this movie. He plays the bookie. It is amazing. His acting in this film is so modern. This movie's from 1950. This period, it's very easy to tag things as melodramatic. And people like to use that as a pejorative term, like, it's melodramatic. And a lot of noir films have that in it. But his acting in this film is very, very modern feeling, and it sticks out through the rest of the movie because of how different his acting style is in it. Have either of you guys seen the film?
I have seen it. It has been so long. It was one of the first Criterions I ever got.
Oh wow. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I watched it pretty right away. So it's been maybe 7 years since I've seen it.
2015 is probably when this came out.
Something like that. Yeah. But I remember liking it, and I know that it's very much a foundational kind of heist film. Really kind of sets the stage for what somebody like Michael Mann would do, with Heat and things like that. And I just know that it's a seminal kind of heist, film. And I know Andrew's seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I've seen it a couple of times, rewatching and all that kind of stuff. It's such a noir classic, staple at this point. John Huston before this had done The Maltese Falcon, which was another kind of staple of the film noir genre there at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's another thing that I want to talk about. That was another reason why I chose The Asphalt Jungles, because I knew this would be a real noir. This is considered a real noir.
Right, it's got everything.
I know it's the whole thing, and I know Maltese Falcon. That's a proto noir, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, exactly.
That and Double Indemnity, it's like part of the film noir starter pack.
Which I
You know,
actually just watched Double Indemnity for the first time, I think last fall, so about a year ago. There's a lot of noir that I have not seen. I do own quite a bit of it, but a lot of the big staples I am actually missing. And this is the first one that I've watched in a long time. I wanted to, Andrew, to ask you about Mark. Do you remember Mark Lawrence? I believe that's the character.
the character Cobby.
Cobby.
For those people who have not seen the movie at all, my headphones are falling off, so I'll be readjusting them constantly. It's about a heist kind of gone wrong.
Yes.
And that's always the case with heist movies. Is like, even if something goes completely straight and it's completely right, there's always some drama in the aftermath of it all. You know what I mean?
That is most heist movies. There is one that stands to mind that actually is the opposite. I don't know if this is a spoiler if I say that it is successful.
Yeah, I'm about to say you're gonna spoil it.
Yeah, don't spoil a successful heist movie.
Well, okay, then fine. I can't. I'll tell you.
I guess don't even mention it. But there's always when you get so many people involved in such a precise thing, you need, you know what I mean? The one little thing going wrong can just escalate and snowball and become bigger and bigger. And then once the crap hits the fan, it's a mess. That's what I love about the Asphalt Jungle is it's not even so much about these movies aren't even about the heist themselves. They're about the drama between the men. You know what I mean? The egos and all this kind of. You just mentioned Sterling Hayden, who's this big kind of strong, not bumbling guy, but he's the dude you don't mess with.
Yeah,
He says, "Don't bone me," which has become like a gif now.
Exactly. And he's not bumbling, but he is seen from the other men as kind of like a goofball, like oh, that's just some. I think they use the term hick in the movie. They say he's just some dumb hick.
Dumb hick.
Yeah, he's just the muscle man. Exactly. You know what I mean? He's the anchor of it all. You know what I mean? Like but he's also kind of like the hothead. Like if something's going to go wrong, chances are it's going to be him. Yes. Sterling Hayden is such a unique, I would say, character actor of his career. I don't think he was ever quite the leading man, but he shows up in a lot of things. Like we just mentioned, Dr. Strangelove. He's, Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper. He's in The Killing, which is another heist movie, but the one by Kubrick in 1956. You could mention he's also in The Godfather as well. So I have a feeling at one point in time, Coppola must have saw this movie and was like,
which I think even with The Godfather, I think he had retired before The Godfather came out, and he had not made a movie in a handful of years, and he came back for that. He and another thing too with The Killing, I guess that's another movie that he would be a star of, I guess you could say. Not necessarily Dr. Strangelove, but I think The Killing, he's like the main guy in that movie too.
Right. Well, that's another movie about a heist, kind of. Even kind of a heist. Yeah, it's a heist. Yeah, but it's like a heist going wrong as well.
Yeah.
And it's Kubrick doing it
as well.
That was another kind of early Criterion that I think I bought. Steven, was that one of your early ones too?
Yeah.
That was probably one of my first 10 for sure.
Well, it's because, you start out, you're looking for directors, Yeah.
We also like looking about like what other people are talking about at the time. For me, it was like all of that. This was probably like the mid 2010s. Probably The Killing came out.
Before that, because I think when I started collecting was November 2013, and I think On the Waterfront had just came out, so I think The Killing and Paths of Glory. I think.
Oh yeah, I'm way off.
Yeah,
You're right, Gage. Yeah, The Killing came out on Criterion 2011.
Yeah,
August of 2011. Jeez, that was one of the early ones.
Yeah, that was a long time.
Yeah, I remember those. Those were the glory, not the glory days, Steven, but I don't know, that early 2010s for me was when I was getting into it, and I was just buying 30 movies per sale. I was just I would get there and I would get a stack, and then I would just I wanted to get them before other people would show up. I remember early Criterion sales. I would go there early in the morning, as they opened, just to beat all the other people there.
Well, I don't do that. I've discovered.
I don't do it anymore. Obviously,
discovered all the other labels now.
Now it's different.
That's what I was gonna say. I believe that I said no. I think summer sale. I think I said I got the Asphalt Jungle. I think it was a November sale a few years ago, because nowadays the Criterion November sales, I'll only buy maybe one or two. I buy more in the summer because there's not as many big sales going on, whereas
Yeah.
the November, there's so much stuff on Black Friday. Like, I can't go buy $100 worth of Criterions. I got to save up for the big vinegar.
I know. I mean, we just got through the Black Friday window.
Kino just started.
Yeah, and then Kino jumped in at the fray in the last bit, and then the Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble is still technically going on for this round
right?
until the 4th of December. So those of you watching, it's going to the 4th of December, which is this coming Monday, I think is the calendar is right.
Yeah.
I still have a few more I need to get.
Yeah, I'll probably make it back up there and get 1 or 2 more, maybe.
There's still 2 big ones, and then like that Pasolini set still haunts me.
Ooh.
It's because like I want it, but I also know that I'm gonna buy it and it's gonna sit on the shelf until like some unwatched pile in the future. Just because I would want to delve into it like fully. Yeah. Kind of like how the Bergman set's been sitting on my shelf since like 2018.
And another future unwatched. And
God,
the Asphalt Jungle, though, I want to say, just wrapping up on it, obviously the story is amazing and the acting and the directing is amazing, but the world that is created in this film is absolutely amazing. You could see where the Europeans took from this filmmaking style a decade later in the 60s. It's so very stylized. The textures of the rubble on the ground, the concrete, especially the first like 5 or 6 minutes of the movie, is just kind of slow pans into the city. You see a cop car, chasing Sterling Hayden's character down, not necessarily chasing him, but trying to find him, and he's creeping away. And then he creeps into this diner, and they have, just amazing lighting, and the character that runs the diner has, a unique look to him. He's a hunchback kind of guy. Just everything about this movie is superbly detailed, and it's definitely worth the watch. I mean, but you don't need me to say that. It's obviously cemented itself as a staple in the genre.
Most definitely. Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad anytime somebody's like, I enjoyed it. I mean, mostly everybody likes their first time watches on this show. Yeah. I think I was the only one except for me. I had one where I was like, that sucked. What was it again?
You can say it, Steven.
I can't remember what the movie was.
Really?
I've already forgotten it. I just know that there was one time where I was like, it was the movie that the guy that did Donnie Darko.
I was just going to say
Southland Tales.
Okay.
God, that's
Southland Tales. Yeah.
See, that's another thing with me. It's like I'll very rarely talk shit about a movie. Like that's another thing my friends hate about me is I try to find something interesting.
Well, no, there is always something. I mean, the movie's not terrible, but it's like I was like for a first time watch, I was like,
it
wasn't working for me. But awesome, man. Well, we'll come back around, see what you paired it with.
Yeah.
Andrew. Yes. Please tell us about The Killers, 1964.
Okay, so you just gave mine away. The Killers.
Well, everybody knows that you're 1964.
Very true. We put out a promo of it. So yeah, so The Killers from 1964. So this is kind of like a half unwatched pile, I guess, because I've seen half of what is contained in this edition here. Once again, going with the Criterion Film Noir, coincidentally, I'm on back-to-back. So you've got this edition here of The Killers, which contains both the 1946 original one that stars Burt Lancaster and Ava Gardner. Then you got the 1964 remake, which stars John Cassavetes, Lee Marvin, and Angie Dickinson. And it released from a few years ago. I want to say 2015. So wow, that's way longer than I realized.
You're off of your dates today.
Yeah, I am very off on the dates today. You know, it's time's moving too fast.
The hat's messing with his mind.
The hat is messing with me. The fact that my headphones are like half falling off constantly, it's throwing my game off. But this is The Killers from 1964. As you can see, the one from 46 is the one that gets all of the billing because you even got Ava Gardner and Burt Lancaster here on the front. And then I think another booklet here has Lee Marvin and Angie Dickinson, which is very misleading because they're only in like one scene together. So don't think that that's the lead. If anything, it probably should have been John Cassavetes and Angie Dickinson here. But you got both films on one disc. And this movie is an interesting kind of neo-noir from 64. Originally, it was supposed to be a TV movie. It was actually going to be the first, like, 2-hour color TV movie of all time,
Mm.
and then it was too violent. Lou Wasserman, who was the head of Universal, I think at the time, was like saw the cut of the movie and was like, "Yeah, this is too violent to put on TV, so we're going to release it theatrically." That's why the aspect ratio of this movie is kind of wonky. It's in 1:3:4
Mm.
which is typically like a TV aspect ratio, but I guess they changed the formatting around for theatrical distribution. In Europe, it went straight to theaters, and here in the US, it went straight to theaters as well. But the premise of the movie is that Lee Marvin and this other actor are they're hitmen, and they are the movie opens with them performing a hit on somebody, and the character happens to be portrayed by John Cassavetes, and John Cassavetes is his name is Johnny North, and the other actor is Clu Gulager. Um,
Who's in everything ever made.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many things he was in until I was doing my research of him last night. He actually has like an 18-minute interview that was shot in 2002 on this disc here as a special feature, and he is an incredibly candid individual about like what he was feeling at the time of the making of the movie, where he was like, yeah, I just thought this actor was going to be absolutely terrible, and turns out no, he's actually pretty good. So I'm like, this guy just doesn't care. But it was very interesting. So it's Clu Gulager and Lee Marvin are these two hitmen, and they go into this school of the deaf, I believe. No, School of the Blind, where John Cassavetes' character is teaching, and they assassinate him. They kill him, and they begin to question like who this guy was, what's his backstory, what is the reason why we were hired to kill him, because the Cassavetes character Johnny North doesn't put up a fight. He doesn't try to run away. He doesn't scream. He doesn't fight them. He just accepts his fate and gets killed at the very beginning of this movie. So the whole movie is done in flashback of them going around to certain individuals connected to Johnny North to see what the story is, and we get it as viewers. So that's the way the film is kind of bridged, is the assassination at the beginning, and then kind of the story being told in flashback form. And what we get is kind of a classic film noir. Angie Dickinson is a femme fatale who convinces John Cassavetes' character to perform a getaway job of a bank heist for a gangster type character portrayed by one Ronald Reagan in his last ever film role was
Wow.
in this movie.
What year is that? 60?
64. So it was right before he was probably getting into politics or transitioning into politics, because he would be the president, 16 years later? So obviously at that point he was making the transition. And this was the last movie he ever did, and he initially didn't want to do the film, but Don Siegel, who was the director of this film, apparently they were friends at the time. So it was kind of one of those where like, I'll do it because you're my friend, and that's how that came to be.
Sounds like politics.
Yeah, very much so. I think Ronald Reagan didn't want to do it because he was playing a bad guy. He was going to be playing this like dirty gangster type of guy who was, abusive to women. He was, into illegal things like, bank heist and stuff like that, and gambling and whatnot, and, race car driving and stuff like that. And,
Cool
he wanted like a squeaky clean image, I guess, going into politics.
Yeah.
And that's why he didn't want to do it. But
I guess once he got there, he changed his mind.
Yeah, I would say ironically so. Politics is never clean, never ever clean. And so this was the last movie he ever did, and so Cassavetes and the Angie Dickinson character have this classic film noir relationship. It's romantic, it's hot and heavy. He just can't resist her. He can't resist her in anything. He's like a race car driver and that's why he gets kind of roped into this heist job and this getaway driving job. And, it's got backstabbing, it's got twists and turns, it's got the usual, film noir types of things going on in it. It's very solid. Lee Marvin is very great in it, as well as Clu Gulager. They play like a yin yang pairing when it comes to the assassins for hire. Lee Marvin is incredibly gruff and rough. This was done at the time where he was still playing heavies in movies, and he wasn't really quite the leading man yet. But coincidentally, like a year later, he would be in a movie in which he would win an Oscar for it. So, and the way timing works is rather odd to me. But at that time, he was just, if you look at his credits, like in the early 60s, he was just doing all spots on TV shows. Like he would be in an episode here and there of so many random things like Bonanza and the Virginian and stuff like that. But he was in this movie as a kind of rough and gruff assassin. And Clu Gulager was the complete opposite. He was like joking around the whole time. He wore sunglasses in like every scene, whether he was inside or outside. He was one of those dudes who just wore sunglasses. But yeah, really solid film. Classic kind of film noir. I mean, if you're comparing it to the 1946 version, the 1946 version is probably, it's a better film and heralded as more heralded as the better film and more well known. The story itself is based off of an Ernest Hemingway story, but apparently the killers, the 1964 version, Don Siegel didn't want like it to be a straight adaptation. He kind of just wanted the title and like the basic premise, and then he would just do whatever he wanted with it, which is what a lot of directors did back then when they adapted books or stories or stuff like that. Hitchcock did the same thing with like all the books that he adapted. He basically just took the title and did whatever he wanted. So yeah, that's The Killers from 1964. Solid. Yeah, I really dug it. Like I said, it does have an 18-minute interview with Clu Gulager from 2002 as a special feature, as well as an audio excerpt from director Don Siegel's autobiography, which is narrated in this. And it goes, and that's about 18, 19 minutes long as well. And it goes through like the step-by-step process of like the making of the movie. Like he talks about how initially in 1946, he approached Jack Warner to do that 46 adaptation, and Jack Warner didn't want him to do it. So 18 years later, he got reapproached to do another adaptation of the story, and he wanted to do it. Then it talks about who he wanted to cast and how the casting process went, how the shooting process went. Interestingly, during the making of this movie, the assassination of JFK happened, and they had to stop production for like a couple of days or so. Very interesting how life goes on outside of the movie making world. So really interesting film, and all the context that goes around from its making of, I thought was also surprisingly interesting as well.
Yeah. That's cool that you got to dig into the special features. I haven't got to dig into any on the Asphalt Jungle yet. I'll probably check some of them out tonight. I know that there's a handful on there that definitely looked interesting. That Killing Disc as well, I've wanted for a long time. I think when it came out, I believe it was one of the first ones to overseas get a 4K, like a German 4K. And I was like, man, I'll just wait, because I'm probably Criterion may do one, but it may have been one of those German fake 4Ks, that they just.
I mean, at this point, so much of Criterion stuff that they're not putting out in 4K is getting released by anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say everyone else, but anyone else. I mean, we just mentioned The Killing. The Killing got a 4K release from Kino.
Yep.
They did a 4K release of another Kubrick film.
Killer's Kiss and Paths of Glory.
Yes, and Paths of Glory. So interesting. Steven, what did you end up choosing? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I didn't see the promo, so I don't know what you guys had.
Yeah. So initially I had another movie in mind, but then I switched it like a couple days ago. So I'm doing a film that's been probably it's been sitting on the shelf for a while, all the way, just by the company, because it's an Arrow Academy.
Oh, so
it's an older edition.
At least like 2 or 3 years.
Well, this edition is from 2013. So it's been around for a while. There is an edition in Region A from the Criterion Collection, but the one I have is from Arrow Academy, and that's for Joel Dassin's film, The Naked City.
Oh, that was going to be my backup. Okay. But I still have not watched Naked City.
Yeah. Okay. So Naked City is from 1948, directed by Jules Dassin. Done a lot of great films. He did just before this film, he did the film Brute Force, in 47. He had done Andrew can he's Night in the City. He did that film.
Yeah, he did Rafifi.
Rafifi is another one of the big
great
ones.
heist movie.
Yeah. So he's one of the blacklisted directors. There is actually a whole feature on this that talks about all the directors that were blacklisted at the time. So it's a good feature on here. But the Naked City takes place in New York, and it's very much one of the big things about this film is that they kind of used as the thing to push it was that it's actually filmed on the streets of New York. No sets. It's all, with the people of New York, in real places. And so, it has this very kind of raw vibe to it. Also because, it's considered a noir, but very much, I would say it falls closer to like more police procedural. And of course this is 1948. So this is early on in that kind of genre, just like that, the heist for Asphalt Jungle. I think that this is a film that kind of laid the groundwork for the police for procedural, literally going step by step on how the detectives are investigating the murder that happens in this film. And also they use a lot of voiceover and kind of get you the inner thoughts of some of the characters at some points, things like that. And yeah, so the film starts out really just kind of having a voiceover from the producer, one of the producers of the film, who actually died not too long after this, or not too long before the release of the movie. He was only like 44. He died from like a heart attack or something. But he just kind of sets up the stage, says, this is New York. This is where millions of people live. And this story here is just one of a many, stories of murder that happened in the city. And so like, then you see right off the bat, right into it, you see the crime that starts everything. And it's honestly more violent than I thought it would be. Like for 1948, you see a woman getting strangled by two men, and then she gets drowned in the bathtub. Okay. And then a little bit later, you see the men at the docks, and the one kills the other and throws him in the river. So that's kind of the spark that starts this. Your actors that are your main detectives are played by I'm sorry, I'm missing I had my page here. Barry Fitzgerald, who plays Lieutenant Dan Muldoon, and then you have Don Taylor, who plays Detective Jimmy Holloran. And really, I mean, with that, you can't really talk about this movie in any real depth, because really what it is just a step-by-step of going down and them interviewing people, investigating people, and coming to the conclusion at the end. I mean, it's not really a twisty-turny type of noir. It's very much just you're following the investigation. And one of the, I think, interesting things about this noir is that it really doesn't play up the kind of darkness as much. It's actually kind of light. It's actually got very kind of like a little bit of a laid backness to it. The detective, specifically Barry Fitzgerald's character, has kind of got this fun, he's been doing it for a while, so he kind of is playful in a lot of ways as he's doing his job. And also you get to see a lot of what they do outside of being detectives. He goes home to his wife. He's got his family. The other detective, played by Ron Taylor, has a young wife. They have a very good rapport together. You see their home life, and it takes you in and out of all this. And it just, like I said, just takes you through the whole investigation until you get to this big ending where they find the killer. And yeah, and it's a great ending. Very beautifully photographed. That one of the main things to me that caught me at the beginning as well is just how striking the images were. Very stark black and white. And the footage they got on the streets was it's just whenever you hear that they shoot on the streets, you're like, is this going to turn out well? Are you going to see people like in the background, like looking at the camera? Like, how do you get them people to be controlled? You know, you never know, but like, it's a solid movie. I wouldn't say it's like a top. I know this is considered a pretty high film noir for people. I don't know if I put it. I think it's a little bit on the rims of being a film noir for me, because it feels more like a detective, just a cop movie, a crime movie versus like a legit film noir. Because there's not really, I would say, a legit like femme fatale. You know, it's not. Yeah, there's not like a character that's going through something in some like, there's no alcoholism, there's no, there's no obsession in the, there's no like staples of the genre necessarily that really make me think film noir, but I think it's got just enough of the elements that it's in there. But it's still a really good police procedural. It very much set the groundworks for like your CSIs and shit. Like it literally is an extended CSI like episode, but really good. And I know, Andrew, you've seen it.
I have seen it, and I'm trying to remember if I own the Blu-ray or not, because I remember buying it on DVD because it was only available on DVD for a long time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the Blu-ray I don't think came out until 2020.
But I want to say a couple of years ago for the Criterions, anyways.
Yeah, the Criterion waited a while to put it out on Blu-ray. So I don't remember if I ended up upgrading it or not. I have to go check my Jules Daston section. But yeah, it's one of those kind of street level semi-documentary style. At least they're trying to play with the documentary type style. You know what I mean? It still looks like a production, but they're trying to sell you on the idea that, oh, we're on the real streets of New York. This could happen in your neighborhood. Maybe this does happen in your neighborhood, playing up that fear of crime, that fear of, murder and attacks and all that kind of stuff, burglaries and things like that. So they're really playing up that idea, which is something that is way ahead of its time, really. I mean, that's still stuff that they utilize today with like reality TV, you know what I mean? Or things like that, or even,
let's First 48, stuff like that.
Yeah, like things like that.
Crime,
forensic files, or like things that Stephen was saying, the police procedurals and all of their spin-offs in and of themselves. I'm thinking of like Dragnet too, which I think was a series in the 60s.
Well, I mean, this movie actually spinned off to TV series later on. They actually had two different Naked City shows. They Naked City Justice with a Bullet, and then Naked City Killer Christmas. That actually starred Scott Glenn. So.
I think
Killer Christmas. What a title. Well, Killer with a Bullet was that what it was called?
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
Jeez, that sounds so harsh.
Yeah. He just throws bullets at people.
When Criterion will sometimes include, I thought Asphalt Jungle did, but I don't think it does. I like when they include like episodes of like a spin-off TV series or something like that, or they'll have
or even like a pilot episode, or
like
a failed pilot.
Yeah, or like a radio adaptations of the story or something like that. That I always love when they include stuff like that.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you, Stephen. You said that somebody gets thrown in the river in that movie. Someone gets thrown into the river in Asphalt Jungle. And it's brutal. It's like I'm guessing a dummy death, like where they have like a stuffed guy, because it has some impact when he hits the water. He gets thrown off of a bridge. I was wondering if Naked City's guy getting thrown in the river was any good.
Well, it's not. You don't see well, I mean, you don't see him fall into the river, but but just before he gets thrown into the river, the guy beats him. Like, you don't see the impact, but he gets hit in the face with I believe it was a bat.
Okay.
Like, he just comes up to him. He's drunk. The guy's drunk. And so the partner that kills him comes up, just hits him over the head, gets hits at blunt force, kills him. So
that was a highlight of the Asphalt Jungle for me, for sure. Last night I was like, whoa, that was cool, crazy.
I the beginning of this movie really, like, it just surprised me at how violent it was.
Asphalt Jungle has some like police brutality moments in it that have some pretty crazy visuals to them as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, here we are coming back around. Gage,
Circling back.
circling back. Please
Okay.
tell us what you are suggesting as a companion with this film, your film Asphalt Jungle.
Okay, so just a little backstory, a little inside baseball, inside chasing labels. When Steven had first approached me for doing this, I was like, oh, I have the greatest of all time, The Sweet Smell of Success. He's like, I just did that one. I was like, oh, man, because I bought that during the November sale of 20.
You could, honestly,
November
I probably
2023.
should have told you if you wanted to really do it, you could.
No, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
wanted to redo something that's already been done. So I
right.
didn't mind at all. I didn't mind, but
Maybe next time you come on, you'll do it then.
Yes.
If you really want to watch it, yeah.
Okay, yes. But I got that 10 years ago and I still haven't watched it. That's like the definition of this show, But
Yeah.
So once after that, the next thing I thought of, I was like, oh, I'm going to do Wrestling with Shadows, the Bret Hart documentary, that Canadian. And then we decided to do Noir. So the Asphalt Jungle, I really didn't plan on watching until like a week or so ago. And I didn't know what I was going to pair with it. I thought maybe I'll just choose a different heist movie like Thief or Rififi, because I've seen both of those, and those are both awesome movies. But it turns out that the movie I had watched last actually had some connections to this film in a way.
Okay.
I don't know how much I'll be able to talk about this movie, but and I feel stupid because I should know the actor's name, but I don't even know the actor's name. But there's an actor that is in both of these movies. He's in he plays one of the he plays the safecracker in the Asphalt Jungle. And in this film, he plays basically he's the main protagonist of or antagonist of the movie. Sorry, and it's a movie starring Mitchum. Have you ever heard of him? And
Robert
Stallone,
Mitchum
and Stallone, but Frank Stallone.
Oh no.
And Chris Mitchum, called Savage Harbor.
What?
This is VSA number 1 right here for the VSA line. And
okay.
Yes, so it's famously talked about as being a film with Mitchum and Stallone. And it's talked about briefly in the special features. But the like I was saying, the main antagonist of the movie is the safecracker, but this is obviously 40 years later, because that was 1950. I think this is like 1989 or 1988, somewhere around there. And in this movie, Savage Harbor, he is such a gross, slimy man. He basically plays a guy that is a pimp and is flooding drugs, and he basically has this woman under control by shooting her up with drugs. And Stallone is trying to save her, and he's very gross in this movie. And then also another connection to it is one of the great special features of the movie is they actually got Frank Stallone to sit down and do like a 15-20 minute interview talking about this film. And it's even better than the movie is. He talks about how the first time he showed it to his brother, they were rolling on their ground, belly laughing, throwing up. And Frank Stallone says in the special feature, the director of Savage Harbor wasn't John Huston. So I thought that would be a good movie to compare or to pair with this, because like I said, I think it's interesting film journeys, right? That's always my favorite part of watching films. It's crazy the coincidence that I wound up watching Savage Harbor, and it just so happened that the next movie I was going to watch would be The Asphalt Jungle, and it would share a pretty key player in both of those films, but so many decades apart. Yeah. And that Frank Stallone compares it to John Huston movie. But Savage Harbor is a crazy movie. You guys collect a lot of Vinegar Syndrome, so you know what you're getting into when you get one of these kind of movies. I don't know if they actually have this available anymore, because it was their first VSA, so I know the limited version's long sold out, but I don't know if they actually made a standard version of it available. I don't know if you can if another company's ever even put it out. but it's such a bizarre film because it feels like a movie where they had an idea for a movie and they basically just shot a bunch of scenes and was like, we'll make a real story out of it when we edit it.
Did Frank do the music as well?
I don't think he did, but the soundtrack in it is actually pretty decent. I like it. It's got some pretty funky music too. It's all set in Los Angeles, and it was shot like out in the streets of Los Angeles, like out in the dockyards, because they're both like merchant marines, like merchant seamen. And it's funny, they keep coming back like that's like 3 months later, and every time they come back, everything's still decked out with Christmas decorations. Like the strip club they're in has
what
Christmas,
the hell?
like, the apartments have Christmas decorations, so it's like perpetually December in this area that they're in. But yeah, no, it's definitely worth a watch. It's crazy. I forget the producer of it, but I think the producer of it's like the guy that produced movies like Evils of the Night and a bunch of other 80s, schlocky fare that you can find from Vinegar Syndrome. And yeah, that's the last 2 movies that I've watched, actually, these 2 movies.
Now, which order would you watch these in? Would you watch that film first?
I would watch Savage Harbor first.
Okay, yeah.
I would put that on first.
That's the first. That's the opener, and then then the better movies, the second movie.
Exactly, and then because then when you see him, 40 years, 30 years younger or whatever in Asphalt Jungle, you're like, oh man, that's that guy. Let's go. Yeah. He's probably in a whole bunch of other stuff that's way more famous, but that's just what I know him from. But yeah, no, they're definitely both worth checking out. And the woman that plays the main girl in this is super beautiful, and I think she's a pretty good actress in it. I mean, for what you're watching, and I don't think she wound up doing. I checked her letterbox, and I think she only ever had like probably 10 other acting credits in it.
All right. Great, man. Awesome. That another great double feature added to the list of double features by our guests. Can't wait to. Well, I have to find that movie first, but
yeah, it's gonna be a hard one to find.
It's gonna be a hard one to find.
You probably find it on Tubi.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Probably be on Tubi. Probably sounds like a Tubi movie.
Yeah.
But awesome, man. Thank you, Gage, for sharing that with us. Andrew.
Yes.
Please tell us what you're pairing with The Killers, 1964.
Well, I initially had one movie in mind, and then I don't know if you saw me get up in the middle of when Gage was talking.
I did see that. I was like,
did you notice?
I was like, that's rude.
I thought I was being sneaky.
He hates Frank Stallone. He's like, that's it.
Yeah, I can't stand it.
Fucking hate
I'm fucking done. He tricked me. He said Mitchum. He said Stallone.
I thought you were gonna say Robert Mitchum.
I know. Once you don't, yeah. I exactly. But I ended up getting up and choosing another movie off the shelf. Just because I felt like this one paired more, and I was thinking about it was my first one I was gonna pair it with, and then I overthought it, and then I went with something else, and then I went back to this one. I'm very indecisive, literally during the show. So, anywho, enough of that. I decided to choose the movie Point Blank, starring also Lee Marvin and Angie Dickinson, and this movie came out in 1967. So 3 years after The Killers came out. And this is a movie I've talked about on the podcast, I think, several times. Basically, every time we bring up a John Boorman film that's getting a movie release on the podcast, I bring up Point Blank and I bring up Excalibur. Because those are the 2 John Boorman movies that immediately pop into my head.
Excalibur a lot,
yeah. I don't know why I don't. It is. I don't know why I don't bring up Deliverance, which is probably the movie John Boorman's most known for. But I bring up this movie and I bring up Excalibur because this movie I find to be so underrated, overlooked. It's a movie I had on DVD, and then I bought it when it was re-released on Blu-ray through Warner Archive, I believe. And it's such an underrated neo-noir from 1967. And it's once again very sleek. The movie's only like 93 minutes long. It's right to the point. Kind of a blunt film. Lee Marvin once again is in this movie as kind of a heavy, silent, strong type guy, but he is the lead of the movie. What happens is that he is hired to once again perform. Well, not in the other film, he's an assassin. In this film, he's hired to take part in a heist, and the heist once again does happen, but it's the complications afterward that leads to the plot of this film. Basically, the heist happens, and then he gets double crossed, and they kill him, or they think they kill him, and then for the rest of the movie, he's basically on a revenge trail to get revenge on the people who set him up, the people who had him killed, why that happened. He has a relationship with Angie Dickinson that we learn about. The main antagonist in this film, which always baffles me the most, is Carol O'Connor. Carol O'Connor being Archie Bunker from All in the Family, one of my favorite television series of all time. And to see him in a role of where he's playing like this antagonistic bad guy. Granted, the Archie Bunker character is not a good guy, but it's
there's
played.
so many clips from that show.
Yeah, it's in All in the Family. He's played as an over the top buffoon of a misogynist, a racist, you know what I mean? Just completely ignorant. And this, he's like a real, like, vicious bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, kind of one of those types. So this movie is like part revenge, part heist movie at the beginning. Yeah, it's a really, really good film. I highly recommend it to everybody I meet. Also, this edition here has an audio commentary with John Boorman and Steven Soderbergh.
Wow.
So Steven Soderbergh obviously probably got some type of influence from this film on when he would do his heist films later on. Ocean's 11, 12, 13, you know what I'm saying, and others. So obviously, if Soderbergh endorses this movie, I've always been a big fan of his. So I had to check it out once upon a time. And I did. The movie also, I believe the climax of the film, or maybe the heist of the film, is shot at Alcatraz. So there's a whole vintage feature right here about like shooting at Alcatraz called The Rock Part 1 and The Rock Part 2. Not to be confused with the Michael Bay film from the 90s that's also centered around Alcatraz. Also centered around Alcatraz.
Who would confuse that?
I know. In typical Warner Archive style, it's just the plain old black disc with the eco casing, which never goes away.
What?
Never goes away, Steven. Never goes away.
They don't typically come in eco cases.
I've got to see when this actually came out. If that's when the eco cases were like a thing.
Yeah, I don't think that the Warner Archive does them, but I think that's just like a standard.
You know what? I may have overstepped when I said Warner Archive, because this came out in 2014, and I don't think it was a Warner Archive release. I think it was right before Warner Archive took over putting out the catalog stuff.
That's like I have Over the Top, the Stallone movie, but it's not Warner Archive. But
it's like I also have The Postman Always Rings Twice, which I think came out maybe around that same time on Blu-ray. And Warner Brothers used to put out their catalog stuff through their main line, and then they would just kind of shift it over to Warner Archive, and that's what we get now. I mean, we get an announcement pretty much every month now of just catalog stuff that once upon a time would have been released directly through them, and now it's released through Warner Archive. They've even gone back and re-released stuff they put out it through the Warner Archive line. I'm thinking like Meet Me in St. Louis and Cabaret. Things like that. Even Guys and Dolls as well.
There was another one because it had like the thick digibook.
Yes.
And, King Kong was another one that had the digibook, and now it just has the standard Warner Archive release.
Yes, it does. So that's one of the last Warner Brothers catalog releases directly through them. But yeah, that's Point Blank. Highly recommended.
Well, tell us the other one too. You can't leave us.
Oh yeah, well the other one I took off the shelf. This is what I was going to go with, was The Driver, the Walter Hill
Twilight Time version
film from '78. And the reason why, obviously, the obvious connection was the whole getaway driving heist thing. And just the fact that this movie is, I think, incredibly influential on like modern action films, especially with car chase sequences and stuff like that. And of course, the movie Drive, Nicholas Winding Refn took the premise from this movie and made it his own in that movie. I mean, you got Ryan O'Neal is basically the Ryan Gosling character from Drive, but in the 1970s. That's kind of what he is. So I was going to pair it with that. I even had like another word, was Drive a Crooked Road, which is in the Columbia noir set from Indicator. That was another one that was dealing with like
I think I have that one.
Femme fatales and car chase sequences and car chase heist.
Number one, I have that box set.
Yes,
that's the only Indicator noir box I have. unfortunately.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I need to get more of them because those are beautiful sets.
Awesome. Which one would you watch first? What order would you watch them in?
You know me, Steve. I'm my OCD only lets me watch things in order, so I've got to watch The Killers from '64 and then Point Blank. Like
Okay.
you know how the way I look at time, things going in order. I'm like Christopher Nolan's like protege. Did you not know this?
Well, then you would watch things in weird orders. Then.
Yeah, that's also true.
You would watch it in backwards order, like Memento. Yeah. But all right, well, that's awesome. Once again, another good double feature. Okay, so with mine, what I wanted to pair with Naked City. So I was thinking, I always go at this depending on the film I watch. Depending on the first watch film, I think about what works best. Because it's got to be in my collection. That's the other thing. We all have to be contained in our collection. Yeah. And I had a few ideas, and the film I decided to pick, I felt like it had the most elements that worked as a good like companion. It kind of is the contrast, I feel, to Naked City. It's but it also has things in common. It does have two detectives at the center of it, one of them being a more experienced one and one being younger. The city in the film is a character just like Naked City, and they're both set in New York, and that is David Fincher's Seven. I feel like the other thing about this film, that makes it, like I said, it's very much a contrast. It has things in common, but it is a contrast. This is very much a darker film, a much more darker detective story. The city is portrayed in a lot more of a darker way, more drug fueled, more, it's Gotham City as essentially. And in the two main detectives, their relationship is different, and we do get glimpses specifically at both their personal lives, but of course Morgan Freeman's is he's alone now, and Brad Pitt's is he has Gwyneth Paltrow plays his wife, and they have the strain of the job on their relationship, and but of course they're both after killers. In this case, I won't say who the killer is because that's a spoiler, I guess, if you've never seen Seven. But they're both going after, a killer in the film. And then, of course, in Naked City, it's a murder that's happened, and there isn't like a string of murders. It's not continuing. It's a different type of situation. And, of course, in Seven, it's a serial killer that's killing people based around the 7 deadly sins. And so different situation, but it's, like I said, a contrast. And that's what I like sometimes with my pairings is I like something that is maybe a little bit drastically different than the other, but there's enough similar elements that it feels like it would pair well. And of course, David Fincher, I think, is very much he's very influenced by noir. I think tons of his films are all very noir-esque. His Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is very noir. I would even say, of course, Zodiac, which was actually another one I thought about pairing with this one. Yeah. I just thought that there was more elements with the detective, because there are detectives in Zodiac, but they're not really the central figure. The Jake Gyllenhaal character is kind of the investigator that primarily gets focused on in that film. And it's more an ensemble cast and stuff. You could almost, I know San Francisco is kind of the main place in that film, but it doesn't really use the city as much as I think New York is used in Seven as a character. But David Fincher is just, I think he's very influenced by the noir genre or, movement, whatever you want to call it. The Game has got a lot of noir elements to it.
Well, what about even his newest movie, right? Isn't that everybody talking about that being a noir?
Of course, the killer is like kind of influenced by, like stuff like Le Samurai.
I was going to say,
I haven't seen anything except for the television commercials for it, but I'm seeing that people keep saying, "Oh, noir, noir, noir." Yeah.
So he's very much influenced. So I just felt like, this this would be a really nice like downer, like
Downer double feature?
extreme
Yeah.
pairing with the Naked City. And people, I think people love this movie. I think it's it would be a good second movie to watch. Like you watch the Naked City and you're like, oh, that was nice. That was a nice procedural. Now you watch Seven and you're like, shit.
I don't know. I might have to reverse though. You might have to come down on the
No,
Naked City
it's not.
after
The
watching
Naked
Seven.
City isn't that
Yeah.
lighthearted that you're like, oh, it's an upper.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah.
but it is lighter. So it's
Yeah.
a nice intro, and you're like, okay, I'm warmed up. And then
I guess that Seven is just so epic in scope for the genre that like I feel like it'd be super hard to follow anything with that movie.
It's hard to follow, yeah. So and the other thing is both these films have really great endings.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is giving away anything. I guess it is. I was going to say the way that the fates of the bad guys in the film are different.
Okay.
One gets away with it in a way and one doesn't.
Okay.
So there's a contrast in a way. One wins, one doesn't win. So that's the other contrast. And I think, that Seven in a way actually falls more in noir than I think Naked City does, because it's dealing with a lot more of that obsession of the case, the drama, the internal struggle with the detective, especially Brad Pitt's character really going through the ringer throughout this whole film, physically, mentally, like just, and so, I know you guys have both seen Seven. So I know you said it's a hard movie to follow. Andrew, I know you like Fincher.
I do like Seven. I think maybe my favorite Fincher film.
Really?
Man, it's so dark and so bleak, and so it's such a, I don't know. Sometimes this is gonna sound kind of weird.
That's your favorite.
I was gonna say thank you for saying that, because that's kind of where I was going. I watch a lot of dark and serious and bleak films. Sometimes when you're just in it, you also want to like cathartically keep going through the mud of it all.
Well, I mean, I know you like movies like that, but I'm surprised you don't like something more like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo more, or something like that's.
You know what? You want to hear something interesting? I've only ever seen that movie once, and it was in the theater when it came out. So that was 2011. So
I took my high school girlfriend to see that in theaters.
Wow.
Like
how'd it go?
Came out, and she had to be home by like 11 or whatever the time was, and it was like 10:40, and there was still like 30 minutes left in the movie, and we had to fucking leave. I know, I was so mad. So I didn't see it until like the next year. I got it on like a Black Friday deal, and I finally rewatched the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that was it. I love that movie too. I think Zodiac's my favorite.
Zodiac is my favorite Fincher film. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, I think that's my favorite.
It's really good. They brought up, obviously since Fincher's back, with the new movie, people always go back and look at all of his previous films. Zodiac always gets brought up and whatnot.
Zodiac is always brought up as the one that everybody missed, because it came out on my birthday. This is why I remember it so well.
Oh.
I went and saw it for my birthday the year, I think it was 2007.
Yeah, it was 7.
Yeah. And I remember that the Academy Awards came that year, and everybody was like, nobody remembers Zodiac. Like, why is nobody talking about this movie still? Because it came out in March.
That's time, too early for your Academy Awards to come out.
Yeah, so I think people look back very fondly on that film. It was, of course, right there when Robert Downey Jr. came back in.
Right before,
yeah.
I always like the DVD art, and then of course the subsequent Blu-ray art of it was a letter from like the Zodiac killer, and it was the cover letter, the cover of the front of an envelope.
Yeah,
at least that's the version I got. There was the one that had the movie poster version.
Do you remember being at movies? I think you've talked about Movie Stop before, right?
I have.
Yeah, because it was all alphabetical, and then right there at the very end was all your Zodiacs with that. Like, I'm guessing they probably had a slipcover, because it does look odd as like not, you know what I mean? And it would just be like 27 Blu-ray discs of Zodiac with the note artwork on it.
Oh yeah, I remember. I spent many a Saturday night at Movie Stop.
Yeah.
a decade ago,
man.
going through dusty shelves of DVDs and Blu-rays.
Yep.
Because it was the only. I always bring this up. It was every place closed at like 9.
Yeah,
Except
that place
like
was
movie
open till like 10 or 11. Yeah,
I mean, of course, like places like Target and Walmart were always open late on
they don't
every
count.
day. That's their thing. But you can only go through that bargain bin so much. But that the real gold and the real gem was that movie stop. And places like that, places that still exist that sell used movies are probably getting more rare, more hard to find.
Yep.
So if you have them locally, keep going to them because one day they're going to be gone.
Be gone.
And
And
once they're gone, trust me, you become like us, cynical.
yeah,
And
I see Dan Skip Allen in here saying he hopes we get the 5K of I'm guessing 7 in 2024. I know that Fincher's came out and said that he's working on it, but he's really trying to take his time with it because
can you tell him to hurry the fuck up with Panic Room?
oh yeah, Panic Room.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah, that's supposed to happen too. But I think what he read with 7 was that like he was running into issues where like outside of Windows was becoming too visible on the initial scan that he had, and that he wanted to go back and do an all new HDR grade for it and everything. So it sounds like we may be getting into a James Cameron.
I was just gonna say that.
With a lot,
I was just gonna say,
you know how
It's a
anal
camera
he is
thing.
just
Yes.
shooting them films. You know how
Exactly.
yeah.
But you brought up Zodiac.
Yeah.
People kept bringing up that one scene in Zodiac where it's just Jake Gyllenhaal throwing like a folder onto a car seat, and he made him do it like
Yeah.
a maniac amount of times.
Yeah.
Like just tossing a folder onto a seat.
It would be I'll definitely revisit 7 when when the 4K comes out. It was one of those movies. The first like 25 times I watched it was on cable, and it would be, starting 15 minutes in or missing the last 30 minutes, and I had seen the whole movie, but just like and then I watched like my cousin had the DVD of it, and I was like, oh man, this is way more fucked up than the TV.
The credits of that movie are like harsh.
Yeah.
Like it was one of the first times I watched the credits to a movie and was like, this makes me uncomfortable. Like this makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like this is messed up.
That was like the TNT special forever. I'm sure it still comes on,
Perhaps by this point.
every
But
night. Yeah.
I remember once upon a time you when you mentioned Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that was supposed to come out in 4K, and Panic Room was supposed to come out at the same time. Sony announced it.
Sony announced them officially,
and then they got canceled, and we haven't heard anything since. This was like
2 years ago?
2014.
Yeah,
I think this was like back then.
Well, I'm saying that I remember the Panic Room 4K got announced as well. That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're still waiting. As it is, we waited so long for The Abyss and True Lies. I know many skeptics out there are still not going to be happy until they get it in their hands. Kind of one of them, because things get moved all the time, as Steven and I know. And information comes out all the time, and other collectors know as well. Things get canceled.
Yep.
Things happen. Dates get pushed.
Most definitely.
But hopefully we get those eventually.
I like Josephine DeMarco's comment there too about the TV breaking and falling.
I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet either. So, but I did want to ask you, because I was looking in your room here, Steven. What TV are you rocking right now? What are both of you guys rocking?
Well, that one funny enough, that TV that I'm rocking over there doesn't get turned on very often because it's down here in this room that I don't get to come down to watch things.
Gotcha.
Because I have a baby upstairs now, but it's Samsung 4K.
Yeah. Okay.
Upstairs we have an LG.
Okay. I have this.
Inch. Yeah.
I have an LG C2.
Yeah.
So, nice. 70.
I'd like to upgrade eventually to something else, but they're so new that I'm just like,
dude, get the OLED, man. I got the OLED.
I thought, I'd like to get an OLED.
Oh, you want to? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go on a bit of a rant. Oh, maybe I will.
We don't have time for rants.
It's not a rant. I'll just say this: my TV is like a Sony. I think it's 930H or something like that. I got it a couple of years
the
ago.
numbers in alphabet of mine.
Well, the way Sony would do
4K.
it is they would do every year they would have their new models come out, and they would just add a next letter in the alphabet. Yeah. So, and they reached a point where they did that. Now they've changed it up, but they went all the way to like G or H or whatever the case
I
may
don't even
be.
know what number iPhone I have. So
Yeah,
you know,
and anywho, so at the time I was doing all the research to get a new TV a couple of years ago, OLEDs were just kind of starting to arrive on the scene, and they were still super expensive, like over $2,000, $3,000. Um, Ironically, now a couple of years later, OLEDs are now down to the level of pricing that I bought my current TV at, which
Exactly.
was right under that level of pricing that they were years ago. So
Well,
it's like,
the contrast that you get with an OLED is very
yeah.
important for when you're watching noir films.
Of
We love
course.
these black and white movies on 4K.
Yeah. OLEDs have the deepest blacks because
Yeah.
the technology in them are different than
Yep.
you have for a lot of the other TVs.
LED
The
TV.
bulbs are different, so
Which
the panels are different too.
Yeah, I was impressed with both of the films that I have. Both had great transfers. Obviously, you can never go wrong with Vinegar Syndrome stuff, and Criterion's mostly 9 times out of 10 knocks it out of the park. Both great. You know, I think the Asphalt Jungles is probably dated at this point. So, I mean, maybe one day we'll get a 4K upgrade of that. I would definitely buy that again because it's worth it visually. And The Killers is definitely one. I might try to check that out when I go back up to Barnes & Noble this weekend. And Steven, I actually own The Naked City. So
There you go.
maybe I'll try to watch that before November's over in the next couple days.
Awesome, man.
Nice.
Well, don't overextend yourself. I mean, I know it's only a couple. I'm never going to stop anybody from watching noir, but
Yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah, I know.
You'll start to see everything in black and white. We don't want that.
Yeah. It can Noirvember can last till the end of December.
I watch noir.
Yeah, I was gonna say film noir. Once it's in you, man, it just doesn't. You just want to watch it all the time.
I've been out of watching movies this month. This Noirvember has been very lackluster because both of my teams, the Jaguars and the Seminoles, are both killing it right now. So
bragging rights.
Good for you. Good for you.
But we've so I've just been slacking on movies, and but in October I went super hard in the horror films, and I was listening to Celeste De La Cabra's episode with you guys where she's saying that, you know, I watch noir, or I watch horror films no matter what. I continue watching all year long, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much where I am too. So
I think everybody's got their thing, you know, that they just that's what they're attracted. It's the genre that maybe attracted them into film in general. So that's I think everybody's got that. But Josephine's saying good night.
Thank you, Josephine. Always
roll.
Seeing your comments in the thing. And I think I saw her talking about Hogsten earlier. Yeah, I remember you guys talking about that. The reason that's okay Hogsten song, but the best one is Crawling in the Dark.
Thank you. I started singing and Steven didn't know what I was doing.
Well, when he started singing, I was like, what? Like,
yeah, Steven just tunes out.
That's singing. But all right, guys, I got to call it a night. Thank you, Gage. Thanks once again. Tell everybody what you got going on at Norman Studios. Anything new happening?
Yeah, actually, always. Everything moves at a snail's pace when you're working with the city government and everything, you know.
Yeah.
But I think the last time I was on with you guys was talking about the purchase of the last property finally going through. Well, we were supposed to finally get the keys last week, but it's looking like we're getting the keys this week, which tomorrow's Thursday. So hopefully Thursday or Friday, we should have the keys for this building, and we'll be able to walk in there and see what we're working with in there. And hopefully we'll be a venue to be doing some more Silent Sundays and some more film showings with live musical accompaniment. So that should be happening in the next couple weeks. And then another thing, if I have it right here.
Musical break, here we go. Musical break, here we go.
I'm actually surprised.
Gage gets the thing that he's
I'm very surprised this hat
for.
has actually stayed on this whole time.
You know,
I can't believe his hat stayed on.
Here it is.
And here it is.
Finally getting some merchandise.
Oh yes.
Merchandising.
Let me get this better where you can hold it. This shirt was my idea here from one of our lovely board of directors. She actually got this film. The Crimson Skull is a lost film from the 1920s. It was filmed from Norman Studio, but out in Oklahoma. and that shirt is taken from a original press book from the 20s, and it was printed on this lovely yellow coloring, and I wanted to make a yellow t-shirt with the original artwork because it's so cool, man. You got a skeleton man and everything on it, and that the C logo on the Crimson Skull is just so great looking, and all my friends here want to buy them, but
I was gonna say, can we buy them? Are they available?
So they should be available hopefully at our board meetings are every second Monday, and the next Monday we should have our card stuff finalized to be able to finally like accept card payments on our website, because like our store is through a group that does like our membership program and everything, and so they basically we have to set it up through them, and we had to get with our finance committee to make sure that the sales get tracked and everything, so for the IRS, so we can keep track of all that stuff.
Sounds like a lot of paperwork and
yeah, exactly.
Jump through.
And I don't do any of that stuff. That's like we have a guy on our board, John, who's our accountant, who like does all that work, and he's probably the most valuable player on our team. But yeah, hopefully we're hoping by the time the 2024 is getting up and running, we'll be able to have our web store open where we'll have those shirts, and then also just regular black and white t-shirts with the Norman Studios logo on them, and maybe some hats too down the road, and some canvas bags.
Awesome, man. I can't wait. I got to get down. I'm not that far away from you, so I got to get down there at some point.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anytime, hit me up, and I can give you a tour at any time of the day or anything like that. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you. It's always a great show, apparently, Andrew. Yeah, we're doing something.
I guess so.
All my friends for coming in here and
thank you, Gage, for inviting.
Bring everybody. Bring everybody. We need the numbers. Bring them all. Come on. Bring them all.
But that's it for this installment of the Unwatched Pile, guys. You can find, of course, this on audio later on our Chasing Labels podcast stream over there, where you can find all your podcasts. This is on our YouTube channel, of course, streaming for whenever you want to go check it out again later. And, remind yourself of the pairings that we did tonight. And, of course, we have 6 other installments of this also on our YouTube channel. Go back and look at them previous episodes. And, yes, that's it for this episode. Thanks again for listening and watching. And, hey, what are you doing here? Go watch some stuff. Go get it.
Follow Norman Studios Silent Films on all social media platforms.
Do it, people. Do it. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.